Imagine for a second if everything you've ever known, your reality, exists inside a computer simulation. If that's true, then something would be on the outside, looking in. Part 1 of the series looks at the theories and the science of whether or not reality is really as it seems. Now we're asking a far more dangerous question. If we are in a simulation, what's outside of it? Because if this universe isn't the base layer, then there's a boundary somewhere out there. And everything you've ever known, every galaxy, every star, every moment of your life exists entirely within it. Philosophers have wrestled with this idea for thousands of years, from Plato's shadows on a cave wall to Descartes questioning whether anything can be known at all. The suspicion has always been the same, that this world might not be the real one. Today, the question isn't just philosophical, and one scientist has a theory that what we call the observable universe might not just be a limit of what we can see. It might be the edge of the simulation system itself, the end of the world and time, the cosmic horizon we're not supposed to see beyond. Why are scientists saying a chance that we live in a simulation is anything from 50-50 to almost certain? What can ancient stories tell us about the nature of our existence and where we are in the universe? If we are trapped inside something, what lies beyond the boundary? And is there a way out? Join me as we unravel all this and much more and enter the Codex Legendarium. I'm Shelby Melanson. Welcome to part 2 of our existential crisis extravaganza. No, really, we're literally questioning the very fabric of our existence here. A quick catch-up, just in case you missed part 1. But if you did miss it, go back and check that episode out. If part 1 was the science half, this video, part 2, is the culture half. Plus, a whole lot more science and some really big existential questions. Trust me, you want the big picture on this. Last episode, we talked all about a paper published back in 2003, with arguably one of the most insane titles ever written. Quote, "Are you living in a computer simulation?" Basically, it presents 3 options, a trilemma, if you will, which it says at least one of must be true. 1, humans will go extinct before we reach a super high level of tech development, aka a post-human stage. 2, any post-human civilization is unlikely or wouldn't be interested in running simulations about their history. And 3, and I quote, "We are almost certainly living in a computer simulation." As it turns out, a bunch of the world's brightest minds and science communicators are all totally on board with this. People like Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson. We also covered a bunch of space-time laws that could potentially serve as programming parameters, aka optimization rules, written into the code of our simulation to make it function. And what's more, one physicist from the UK says gravity might just be the best evidence of it yet. Okay, now that's all out of the way. Here's where we left off. Inspired and intrigued by the 2003 paper, Columbia University astronomer David Kipping decided to run the numbers himself. First, he combined the 2 possibilities of the trilemma and pitted them against the third option. Then, he used something called Bayesian analysis, which is basically a technique that uses statistics to measure the probability of something as more evidence for or against it becomes available. And what he found is that there is a roughly 50-50 chance that all of humanity, you, me, everything, we're living inside of a simulation. Okay, fine. Technically, it came out to 50.222 repeating to 49.7778 in favor of base reality. So it ever so slightly leans toward us not being avatars in The Sims. More on that one later. He also speculated that the limits of computing power, even in a post-human level civilization, would end up being a problem. meaning the base reality's computer wouldn't be able to support simulations that spawned their own simulations, that then spawned their own simulations, and so on. There just wouldn't be enough juice. That puts a damper on Elon Musk's theory we talked about in part 1. Because if computing power isn't an issue, and each simulation does create its own army of simulations, the number of minds inside the sims would dramatically outnumber the minds inside base realities. Meaning, there would be a super high probability that we're in one. Okay, so all of that sounds pretty insane, I know. But outside the science, this idea isn't a new one. We've been imagining the possibility of this for a very long time, and our storytelling reflects that. And one thing in particular really stuck out to me while I was researching for this video. Now, if you read a lot of science journals or articles that zero in on science and tech news, you know that most of them try to draw on something relatable to introduce an otherwise very academic or technical explanation of some new finding. That's normal, and it's good writing. But the sheer number of articles that compare the "are we living in a simulation" question to the Matrix is staggering, to the point that even several of the scientists we talked about in part 1 of this video bring Neo and friends into the discussion themselves. But the narrative pondering of the possibility didn't stop there. A decade later in 2010, Christopher Nolan made the entire world start questioning its own reality and plane of existence with the release of the smash hit film Inception. And there's a reason it raked in almost $900 million at the box office. Just in case you haven't seen it, I think we're past the point of spoiler alerts, but the entire 2.5-hour runtime is dominated by the idea that nothing that is real is certain, and that people exist somewhere in a network of nested dream realities. Mostly because in the world of the film, there's a system of corporate espionage that can basically hijack people's dreams and steal secrets using advanced tech. The core plot follows a mission to plant the seed of a new reality into the mind of a target, which then grows into something that feels real and organic, but isn't. My take? That movie is totally based off nested universe theory, but I'm saving that one for a separate episode. Okay, so what about stories that came out before that landmark 2003 paper? Enter Sword Art Online. Quick note, the show came out in 2012, but the web novel it's based on was first published back in 2002. Now, this story is among the most popular and successful animes ever released in the last 25 years, with the novels selling over 30 million copies and the show and movies estimated in the hundreds of millions of views. And again, for good reason. Trust me when I tell you, this story hits different. The whole premise is this. 10,000 players sign in to the launch of a virtual reality video game powered by a device the show calls Nerve Gear. A headset that links up with your brain, prevents your physical body from moving, and projects an entire virtual world and the full gamut of sensory information to go with it into the player's consciousness. In other words, VR video gaming on steroids. The trouble is, after the players enter the game, they're met with a horrifying reality. If you die in the game, you die in real life too, by way of that headset melting your brain. The only way to escape is to make it to floor 100 of a floating castle and defeat the boss there, all while avoiding traps, moral dilemmas, and players that kill other players for fun. Yeah. And let me tell you, by the end of the show, you are cheering for Asuna and Kirito like your own life depends on it. From shows about video games to actual video games, it doesn't get any more simulation-y than The Sims. I mean, come on, it's called The Sims. And to me, this one is arguably the most visceral depiction in this whole discussion. Released back in 2000, when you boot up the game, you create a sim, plop them into a neighborhood, and control their every move and everything around them. It kind of makes me wonder if we all have invisible plumb bobs above our own heads, too. Now, a quick point on this, and one that I've been recently chatting with a lot of you guys about in the comment section. Part of the reason I often compare storytelling, modern and ancient, to the mysteries and weird science that we talk about a lot on this channel is because in my eyes, you can't separate the two. Hear me out. We as people exist by way of communication. We experience the world by receiving information from the world around us and responding to it. Our brain cells send electronic signals to each other and to our organs and muscles, telling them what to do. Then they get messages back in reply. Outside the body, our entire social structure is built on communicating. And at the top of the list of the ways humans communicate is telling stories. My point is, storytelling is a quintessential part of the human experience. So while ancient stories and pop culture may not be verifiable evidence via scientific rigor, they do matter in the grand scheme of understanding our own existence, simulated or not. Okay, that's all well and good. We instinctively understand simulated worlds because in our storytelling, we already create them. But what if we didn't invent the idea? What if we remembered it? You see, the ancient world had its own simulation theorists. The same guy who said, "I think, therefore I am," was not only pondering the reality of his existence, but also whether he was inside a simulation too. No, really. Back in the 1600s, René Descartes wrote about an entity called genus malignus, or Deus Deceptor. Simply put, the evil demon. In his writing, Meditations on First Philosophy, he describes the demon as being designed to systematically deceive humanity, specifically human perception. As for how, this demon could create an entire illusion of reality, complete with an earth, sky, colors, shapes, sounds, and even mathematical truths that appear to be real from the inside, but are actually false if you look from outside the simulation. The trouble is, if you can't rely on your senses or observation or the evidence that you collect from inside the deception, you can't be certain of, well, anything. Except the fact that you exist in some capacity and the act of thinking itself, of course. So, in other words, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Which is true, even if your sense and perception are being deceived. Over in the East, and several thousand years before Descartes was thinking about anything, Buddhism and Hinduism had their own version, called Maya. Literally translated as the illusion, magic, or appearance of reality. Seriously. According to Hindu philosophy, this mysterious power is the cosmic force that creates the illusion that the world as we know it is real. It's the power that projects the illusions of name, form, and function, while forcing people at the same time to mistakenly embrace the illusion of what they see and feel instead of their true highest selves, and the truth of the universe. Interesting food for thought on that one. The philosopher Plato also kind of pondered about this, but we'll talk about his allegory of the cave in another video. The point is, we as people have always suspected that reality isn't quite what it seems. In the process of researching for this whole video series, one idea kept nagging at me. The ancient stories all describe the something outside the bounds of the deception, whether it's being beyond the demon's reach, or outside Plato's cave, or able to see through Maya. But if that's true, then what's outside the simulation that we could all be inside of? Not long ago, I stumbled on a particularly eye-catching article titled, and I quote, "Heaven has a physical location, a physicist claims, and he thinks he knows where in the universe it is." Now, before you click off this video, just hear me out for a second. This also has a secular point of view, and it involves the boundary of the entire observable universe and what's out there beyond what we can see. Earlier this year, a former Harvard physicist published this opinion article. In it, he describes Hubble's law. It describes two things. One, that galaxies in space are rushing away from each other at breakneck speed, aka the universe is expanding. And two, that there's a pattern to the movement. The farther from Earth the galaxies are, the faster they're moving away from the Earth. But as he states in the article, this is where things get really interesting. In theory, a galaxy that's 273 billion trillion miles from Earth would move at 186,000 miles per second, the speed of light. That puts it roughly at a special zone of space called the cosmic event horizon. This area marks the limit in the cosmos where we will never be able to see past, let alone travel to, because the speed of the universe's expansion exceeds the speed of light. Meaning, there is a place out there in the universe that space and time itself will forever prevent us from seeing or reaching. Quote, not even aboard the most souped-up, nuclear-powered rocket imaginable. But there's more. Based on our observations and Einstein's relativity, we believe that time stops at the cosmic event horizon, but space doesn't. So, it's a zone that exists outside time itself and could only be inhabited by light or, quote, light-like entities. Fun fact, C.S. Lewis talks about light beings exactly like these in his space trilogy, beings who move so fast that they are light themselves. I'll throw a quote up on screen for those who want to read it, but back to the issue, there's still more. This horizon is the home of the oldest celestial object in the entire universe, at least what we can see of it. In other words, whatever is beyond it is older than those oldest objects. Older than the Big Bang, universe creation theories, the origin of the cosmos, older than everything. So all of that, according to this physicist, could mean that heaven is in fact located out there. That it's a no-go zone for mortals, but could in theory be inhabitable by what the article calls timeless beings. And also, worth noting here, the basis of most religions is that heaven is the home of the one being that is older than the universe itself. Now, that's the spirituality perspective, but I promised a secular one too. What if the same boundary, beyond the parameters of our reality, is the edge of the simulation? What if whatever is beyond it is outside the system? And what if, throughout the ages, what religions have described as the journey to heaven is the search for the exit sign, the search to find and get out of the computer simulation? What if they're one and the same? Now, as you can imagine, this article sparked a fair amount of debate. Plenty of other scientists jumped in, many of them saying that there's no reason to believe space just stops, beyond the point of it that we can see. It could, and likely does, continue far beyond what's possible or will ever be possible for us to spot. Mostly because the universe is roughly 13.8 billion years old. So, in some regions out there, light simply hasn't had enough time to arrive yet. Or maybe it never will. Or maybe there is an edge to the simulation, and it's just farther away than we think it is. Who knows? But all of that leaves just one main question. Are we truly inside a simulation? And if so, what's really outside of it? Only a couple of things here for sure. If this is a simulation, it's one that we're fully inside of. And whatever is outside has chosen not to tell us about it. But maybe, just maybe, they've left us a few clues. Maybe it's another universe, just like our own, or completely different. Maybe it's a higher dimension of reality. Maybe it's intelligent design. Or maybe it's another layer of the simulation, one that we're never meant to see out of, or at least not in our current form. Because after all, if we could see outside the simulation, would we even recognize a base reality? But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is, simulation or not, it's real, it matters, because we are here. But what do you think? Are we really trapped inside a simulation? And if we are, what's really out there at the edge of time and space itself? I would love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments, and if you have an idea for something you'd like to see a future episode on, let me know. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into mysteries, myths, culture, and science, please take a second to like and share this video, and if you want to see more, subscribe. It really helps get the word out there. Until next time, stay curious, and stay legendary. Thank you.